As South Dakota's public media network, SDPB serves everyone with transparency, integrity, and commitment to open access. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB helps shape South Dakota's future by educating, informing, and inspiring the next generation of thinkers, leaders, and creators. SDPB. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB serves South Dakota through an interconnected communication system that is on 24/7, 365. The first place for Amber Alerts, public safety announcements, and EAS messages. SDPB keeps public servants and citizens informed. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB brings you closer to your government. With gavel-to-gavel coverage of the South Dakota Legislature and in-depth reporting from peer. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. From early learners to lifelong students, SDPB inspires curiosity through trusted educational programs and resources for every stage of life. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. When South Dakotans need reliable information, SDPB is there providing updates and coverage that keep our communities safe and connected. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB celebrates South Dakota's student athletes with live coverage of SDHSAA state championships, sharing the excitement of hometown heroes. SDPB, good, useful, and full of wonder. From choir to debate to theater, SDPB shines a spotlight on South Dakota's talented students through SDHSAA All-State Fine Arts programming. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. Every day, SDPB connects South Dakotans with stories that inform, inspire, and bring us together. SDPB, good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB is your home for fact-based journalism, connecting South Dakotans with news they can trust and stories that matter. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. From children's programs to in-depth documentaries, SDPB sparks curiosity and lifelong learning in every South Dakotan. SDPB. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB brings South Dakotans together, telling the stories that unite small towns, big ideas, and the people who make our state shine. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB shares the voices and experiences of South Dakotans, preserving our stories, our culture, and our sense of place. SDPB, good, useful, and full of wonder. As South Dakota's public media network, SDPB serves everyone with transparency, integrity, and commitment to open access. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB helps shape South Dakota's future by educating, informing, and inspiring the next generation of thinkers, leaders, and creators. SDPB. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB serves South Dakota through an interconnected communication system that is on 24/7, 365. The first place for Amber Alerts, public safety announcements, and EAS messages. SDPB keeps public servants and citizens informed. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB brings you closer to your government. With gavel-to-gavel coverage of the South Dakota legislature and in-depth reporting from Pierre. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. From early learners to lifelong students, SDPB inspires curiosity through trusted educational programs and resources for every stage of life. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. When South Dakotans need reliable information, SDPB is there providing updates and coverage that keep our communities safe and connected. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB celebrates South Dakota's student athletes with live coverage of SDHSAA state championships, sharing the excitement of hometown heroes. SDPB. Good, useful, and full of wonder. From choir to debate to theater, SDPB shines a spotlight on South Dakota's talented students through SDHSAA All-State Fine Arts Programming.
Good afternoon, everybody. House State Affairs will now come to order for our afternoon session of the day. I would ask everybody to please take a seat, have your phones turned to silent. If you plan on testifying today, please make sure you sign in the back. And if you are testifying and have handouts, please have the pages distribute them to committee members. Lobbyists, please make sure you're wearing a badge and that the badge is clearly visible. If you are testifying, I'd ask you to remove any hats you might be wearing. If you're joining us online, welcome. Our email address is housestateaffairs@sdlegislature.gov if you need to email the committee. And last, a reminder that all testimony and questions should be addressed through the chair. At this time, I would ask the secretary to please call the roll.
Representative Baumüller.
Here.
Emery.
Here.
Gosh. Here. Hanson.
Present.
Healy.
Present.
Heineman. Jameson.
Here.
Lems.
Here.
May. Here. Reich excused. Schaefbauer. Here. Overwig. Here. Otenbach.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Mr. Chair,
Okay. Representative Gosh.
I'll move the minutes from last meeting.
Well, thank you. Thank you for anticipating my need for such a motion, Representative Gosh. Wow. Second by Healy. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye. 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 Those opposed, no. The minutes are approved. At this time, I would ask our pages for this afternoon to please come up to the microphone to introduce yourselves, state where you're from, and briefly mention any future plans.
Hello, I'm Lily Sortland. I'm from Rapid City Central, and I plan on going into chemical engineering.
My name is Macy Duffy. I'm also from Rapid City. I go to Central, and I plan on going into business sustainability.
Thank you. Okay. The agenda this afternoon comprises 6 bills, and we're going to take them in order. And we are going to attempt to allot 8 minutes aside for proponent and opponent testimony. We have a lot of material to plow through here. Finally, are there any personal privileges or announcements? Okay, well then with that, we will jump right in with SB 176, amend the period of time before which ballots and other election materials may be destroyed following an election. Welcome, Senator Hulse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Amber Hulse, District 30 State Senator. Hopefully the balance of this bill, the entire thing, will take less than 5 minutes. It's probably one of the easier bills that you'll ever vote on. Basically, you've put all the elections all at the same time, we're just making it so that the materials for those elections are all destroyed at the same time. Don't ask me why the period is 22 months. That's set by federal law. I don't know. I've asked several people why the 22 months was decided, but you can ask your federal officials as to why 22 months, but we're just putting that all in line so the materials are all on the same schedule. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Is there any other proponent testimony?
Good afternoon, State Representative Logan Manhart, District 1. I would just say me too. It's a good bill, keeps everything consistent, and we like our elections to be straight ahead. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative. Any other proponent testimony for Senate Bill 176? Is there anybody online? It looks like we have perhaps Leah Anderson online as a proponent. Ms. Anderson, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Leah Anderson, Minnehaha County Auditor. I think this is a great bill, and I will just give you a me too also.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other proponents in the room? Okay, any opponents for Senate Bill 176? Okay, then hearing none, we don't need a rebuttal, and we will then move into any questions from our committee. Are there any questions for the committee? Questions from the committee? Okay, all right. Well, then we'll move on to committee discussion and or action. Representative Gosh.
I move to pass.
Motion by Gosh, seconded by Hanson. Is there any discussion on the do pass motion? No discussion, then the motion is do pass on Senate Bill 176. All in favor would say aye. Those opposed, nay. The clerk will please call the roll.
Representative Baummuller.
Aye.
Emery.
Aye.
Gosh. Hanson.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Heineman. Jamison.
Aye.
Lems.
Aye.
May. Reich excused. Schaefbauer.
Aye.
Overweg.
No.
Otenbach.
Aye.
Okay, we have 11 ayes, 1 nay, 1 excused.
Thank you. After receiving a majority of members-elect, the do pass motion passes. SB 176 goes to the floor with a do pass recommendation. Okay, next we will move on to Senate Bill 177, an act to clarify the requirements for marking an optical scan ballot. Is there any proponent testimony? Welcome, Senator Blanc.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and esteemed colleagues, Greg Blanc, Senate District 35, Pennington County, Rapid City. So, everybody loves a kumbaya moment, and that's what we had here with SB 177, the Black Ink is Best for Ballots bill. SB 177 is an election integrity bill that simply brings us into compliance with a manufacturer who knows what is best when using optical scan tabulators like we have here in South Dakota. The title of this bill reads, "An Act to Clarify the Requirements for Marking an Optical Scan Ballot." Now, years ago, it was proven that popular colored pens like greens and reds and purples were having a high failure rate with tabulator machines. This left voters with the options to use either a blue or a black pen, as long as they were ballpoint. For hand counting of ballots, either blue or black seem to have similar failure rates, yet when using an optical scanner like we do here in South Dakota, we have a proven winner with the lowest failure rate. Black is the clear choice. So here are some quick facts. The United States Election Assistance Commission only tests with a black pen and recommends only using black pens. Number two, just like God has a manual to help what he created to function at peak performance, ES&S, the manufacturer of the optical scan tabulators that we use here in South Dakota, only has a black pen as a part number that they sell to counties when using their machines. And when the Minnehaha County Auditor testified as a proponent a few weeks ago, she brought a box of black Bic pens as a visual aid because that is what the manufacturer recommends. Third fun fact is that last year, May of 2025, the Board of Elections of South Dakota voted 6-1 to amend existing language to state to only use black pens because black pens have the highest success rate. Now, taking those three vital factors into consideration, wisdom would say that we should have consistency across the state, highly encouraging the voters to use a black pen when using an optical scan tabulator. And just one more quick fun fact. It's kind of a no-brainer, but right now on our existing ballots, we've probably overlooked this for quite a long time, but it says that we can still use a pencil, and everybody agrees that should be removed due to the propensity for smudging. Now, even with those being the facts, when I first presented this bill, I found out just how powerful the blue pen lobby is here in South Dakota. They objected to the requirement that voters must, our language originally said must, use a black pen only. So how did we get to this place of harmony and bliss that I mentioned earlier? We listened to the other parties involved and slightly adjusted the language of the bill, and in the spirit of unity and cooperation and to ensure no one could say that we were bluophobic or we were anti-Smurf, our great team had a friendly discussion with those who had concerns, and we amended the bill. We just removed the word must. In addition, to have uniformity in the state, we included that the instructions to the voters would recommend for best results using a black pen. and would only supply black pens at polling stations. But a voter has the option to use any color pen that they choose. And this isn't a complicated issue and gives clear directions to the voters. Instead of being satisfied with an acceptable failure rate, let's have our goal a 0 failure rate, which by using the black ink recommended by the manufacturer and by the Board of Elections will help us to get there. And the upcoming online proponents will provide you with deeper details on the tabulation process and ink comparisons. But I'll close with this. In a time when election integrity is critical and earning the trust of the voters to keep consistency throughout the state and to remain consistent with how we have voted in the past, I'm just encouraging you, vote yes on 177, and I'll stand by for questions.
Thank you, Senator. About 3 minutes left. Next up, is there any other proponents in the room?
Yes, State Representative Logan Manhart, I would say me too, and please vote yes for the big, beautiful black ink is best for ballots bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents in the room today? Any proponents? Okay, online, my list includes 3, starting with Leah Anderson. Miss Anderson, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you, Leah Anderson, Mr. Chair, from Minnehaha County Auditor's Office. I'm going to try to keep this very brief, but we did modify this bill. Before it was asking, or it was requiring the voters to use a black ink pen, which we were concerned about if there was a recount or something. And so we changed that language to make this dependent on those of us like myself to provide a black ink pen for marking the ballots for in-person absentee and in-person on election day. So we will include instructions to use a black pen. And yes, that's already been changed in the Board of Elections for the instructions that we send out to the absentee voter. So everything will be on the same page with this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, I have Lindley Howard. Miss Howard, can you hear us? Please state your name, who you're with, and proceed.
I can, Mr. Chair. Lindley Howard, McPherson County Auditor, and I will just say that I'm in support of SB 177. It codifies a best practice. Auditors have been providing black pens at the absentee and election day polling places for some time, and SB 177 makes it clear that voters who do not follow the instructions will not be penalized and isn't opening the door for auditors policing pen color. Please support the bill, and I thank the sponsor for the collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, with about a minute to go, we have Rick Weibel. Mr. Weibel, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Chair and committee members. I especially want to thank Auditor Howard. She was the one that really opened our eyes to make sure that if voters do use a different color and we happen to do a recount, we won't be throwing away ballots if they use a blue pen or a green pen or even a highlighter. And so having that great work with all of us across the board, I think we're at a great place, and I recommend a do pass. And I want to thank everybody for their work on this.
Thank you, Mr. Weibel. Any other proponents in the room or online or anywhere in the universe? Nowhere. Okay, is there any opponents here in the room? None online. Okay, so we'll have no rebuttal needed and move into committee questions on Senate Bill 177. Representative Overweg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the prime. Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Hi. Help me explain what I'm voting for. Am I voting to create a law that people have to just suggest but not do?
Thank you, Representative Overweg, for that question. Greg Blanc, Senate District 35, Pennington County. What we are doing is creating uniformity to make sure that the auditors can highly recommend that black pens work best and have the lowest failure rate when using optical scan tabulators.
Follow up.
But couldn't the auditors just suggest now? without putting into statute law?
Senator Blanc.
I think that's a great question. Since we have two auditors online, I would allow them to respond.
Mr. Chair, this is Leah Anderson. Could I respond to that?
Would you like her to respond, Representative Overweg? Okay, Ms. Anderson, please proceed.
Yes, I would love to respond. So Leah Anderson, Minnehaha County. So previously in this law, it stated that pencil or pen could be used. So on our ballots currently, the instructions on the ballot still include pencil or pen. And we are not allowed to change those instructions on the ballot until this law is updated. So getting that language uniform across all administrative rule and on our ballots is dependent on getting the language changed in this law.
Okay, any other questions? If not, I'll turn to committee discussion or action on black pens. Representative Gosh.
Move to pass.
Motion by Gosh, second by Schaefbauer. Move do pass. Is there any discussion on the do pass motion? Okay. Anything? Go ahead, Rep. Overweg. Sorry.
Well, I'm going to resist this motion. I don't know, maybe it's the mood I'm in, but I take making laws seriously, and I don't see where this has to go into statute law to suggest, and then on the bottom it says, but it doesn't make any difference because no one's going to be disqualified anyway. So I'm confused of it, so I'm going to resist.
Representative Hansen.
Well, here's how I see this, and I think it's a good bill, and I support its passage. And I think I remember, last year it was or something where we had the similar bill, but that last sentence wasn't in there. And the concern that I had at the time was, okay, so you go and you try to vote your ballot and you use a blue pen, and now all of a sudden your vote could be disqualified through no fault of your own. So I think it's important, as long as we're using these machines, that we use the best instrument possible, which apparently is a black ink pen. And so that's a good thing. This makes the requirement in law upon the person in charge of the election. I suppose that means if they weren't using that, if push came to shove, somebody could go say, hey, here's the law, you have to be using black pens, and they should comply with that. But if there is somebody who doesn't get the memo and they use a blue pen, I don't think their ballot should be thrown out because of that. So that's why I think it makes sense, and I'm going to vote to support it.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the do pass motion? Okay, hearing nothing, the motion is do pass on Senate Bill 177. The secretary would please call the roll.
Representative Baumüller.
Aye.
Emery.
Aye.
Gosh.
Aye.
Hansen.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Heineman.
Aye.
Jameson.
Aye.
Lems.
Aye.
May. Aye. Reich excused. Schaefbauer.
Aye.
Overweg.
No.
Odenbach.
Aye.
11 ayes, 1 nay, 1 excused.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. After receiving a majority of members-elect, the do pass motion passes. Senate Bill 177 goes to the floor with a do pass recommendation. Next up, Senate Bill 214, an act to amend provisions pertaining to the publication of the statewide voter registration filed. 8 minutes aside. Proponent testimony. Welcome, Senator Peterson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. State Senator Sue Peterson, District 13, Sioux Falls. Senate Bill 214 is a cleanup bill related to House Bill 1062 from 2025. House Bill 1062 provided for the maintenance and publication of the statewide voter registration file. SB 214 clarifies some language regarding updates to the list and reconciles a section of previously existing code that seemed to conflict with the language in 1062 regarding internet access to the list. So the intent of House Bill 1062 in 2025 was that full updated lists would be published weekly, but the bill language referred only to the updates, not the full updated list. So Senate Bill 214 corrects that to more clearly reflect intent. House Bill 1062 also provided for posting the list on the SOS website. However, a pre-existing statute, which did not get updated in HB 1062, prohibited unrestricted access to the list on the internet. So SB 214 adds the exception clause to that section of code, making both compatible and more clear for the SOS to implement. With that, I will turn it over to other proponents, and I would be happy to stand by for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other proponent testimony here in the room?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Heather Baxter, District 34, and I just want to pretty much say me too. I think it's a great bill that the good senator brought to clean up last year's bill that I brought on HB 1062, and with the Secretary of State asking for legislative intent, this is just a nice way to clean up some of the hiccups that we had last year. So I'd ask for a due pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponent testimony here in the room? Okay, online then we have Leah Anderson again. Miss Anderson, can you hear us?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Leah Anderson, Minnehaha County Auditor. I have a question because online when I'm looking at this, there's a 214A that hasn't been moved. But either way, I am supportive of cleaning up this bill or cleaning up the language which this bill would do. I know that it had been difficult working with the Secretary of State's office in trying to encourage them to understand what the intent of the original bill was. So I think this language is just very important to clean that up. So a due pass is recommended by me. Thank you.
Okay, there's been discussion of a proposed amendment that's been published, 214A. Is there any discussion or action on that? Yes, Representative.
I would move 214A.
Motion by Representative Hansen, second by Representative Gosh. Any discussion on that motion?
Well, just that I got the nod from the prime sponsor that she would like that put on the bill, and so I think we should.
Great discussion. Okay. Okay, then the motion is to move Senate Bill 214A. All those in favor would say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. We are officially on 214A. Is there any further proponent testimony on A? I guess we have online Rick Weibel. Mr. Weibel, can you still hear us?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Rick Weibel, representing myself from Elkton, South Dakota. Sorry, I missed that during the last time. Yeah, the intent was supposed to have kind of starting from when this bill passed last year, moving forward, each week's data out there so that we could over time build a 5-year history. And what's been happening is that the Secretary of State each month wipes out the previous month's data and just only accumulates for the 4 to 5 weeks of Tuesday's data on their website. And then the next month comes, they wipe out all the previous stuff, and then you're starting all over. We wanted for election integrity to be able to have that 5-year history so that we could actually see that the proper list maintenance was happening. And so I support a due pass. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there any other proponents? Last call for that. Okay, any opponents to Senate Bill 214 as amended? Okay, hearing nothing, we'll move to committee questions. Any questions by committee members? Okay, then I'll move on to committee discussion or action. Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move due pass.
Second. Hansen moves due pass, seconded by Heineman. Any discussion on that motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, this was a great bill from last year, and it's just cleanup of that strong piece of legislation, and so I appreciate the sponsors and would encourage your support. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the due pass motion? All right, then the motion is due pass on Senate Bill 214A. Those in favor would say aye. Those no. The Secretary will please call the roll.
Representative Baummuller?
Aye.
Emery?
Aye.
Gosh? Aye. Hansen?
Aye.
Healy?
Aye.
Heineman?
Aye.
Jamison?
Aye.
Lems?
Aye.
May? Aye. Reich excused. Schaefbauer? Aye. Overwig?
No.
Odenbach?
Aye.
11 ayes, 1 nay, 1 excused.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. After receiving a majority of members-elect that do pass as amended, motion passes. Senate Bill 214 goes to the floor with a due pass as amended recommendation. Okay, next up is SJR 501, a joint resolution proposing and submitting to the voters at the next general election an amendment to the Constitution of the state of South Dakota limiting the number of terms an individual may serve as a member of the legislature. 8 minutes aside, proponent testimony. Welcome, Senator Roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. SJR 501 proposes to the voters a firm cap of 16 consecutive legislative years. In 1992, South Dakota voters enacted term limits on both the state and federal level. The Supreme Court ruled the federal term limits unconstitutional as we can't put rules on Congress on the state level. However, the state level chamber limits were kept intact. In 2008, Amendment J was proposed to the voters repealing our chamber limits, and it failed with 76% of the vote. Our legislative body last year passed an Article 5 call to open our U.S. Constitution to place term limits on members of Congress because Congress refused to limit their own members. In fact, 8 members of this committee supported it, as did I. I believe it's disingenuous for us to advocate for rules for others without offering voters the same chance to place those rules on us. I will remind the committee that members of the Federal House of Representatives are also up for re-election every 2 years, just like we are. And we felt that they should have real term limits. I've spoken with many representatives in DC that oppose term limits. They say it's good for the president, but not good for them. I think when I come down a level, I often hear a lot of us saying, it isn't for us, it's good for Congress. It seems everybody thinks their position shouldn't have them, but others should. By policing ourselves and giving voters this option, we are also heading off the possibility of a ballot measure brought by the voters, putting a 16-year lifetime cap on the legislative service. In fact, voters in North Dakota and Missouri recently enacted lifetime term limits at the ballot box after North Dakota's and Missouri's legislators refused to truly limit themselves. Now we have seen legislative action in both states trying to undo the will of the voters by proposing this model, which has failed to gain traction as a direct result of legislators not wanting to overturn the will of the people. Being in the legislature has afforded me the opportunity to meet legislators across the country. I've spoken to legislators in both North Dakota and Missouri, and they have said they screwed up by not addressing this before the voters did, and they wish they could go back and fix it before the voters did fix it. While I agree 16 consecutive years is long enough in the legislature before taking a break, I do not agree with North Dakota or Missouri voters' approach of limiting members to 8 lifetime years in the Senate and 8 lifetime years in the House. I think that's a dangerous policy for institutional knowledge. SJR 501 is a proper balance of institutional knowledge and a true citizen legislature that I believe will prevent future action by the voters. While most legislators don't cross the 16-year mark anyway, SJR 501 gives voters the peace of mind knowing there is a real limit and hopefully motivating legislators to see a line in the sand, motivating them to get real things done for their neighbors while they can. South Dakota currently doesn't have term limits. We have chamber limits. This is giving our voters a choice in a responsible way. I personally believe the 16 years is long enough, but this isn't us deciding it. This is us asking the voters if this is what they wanted. Taking breaks are not only good for legislators, but they're also good for the constituents they represent. This isn't about current or former legislators. It's about the future and building trust with the citizens that we represent. I understand we have a lot of things on our ballot this fall already, but from the average citizens I've talked to, the majority want a chance to weigh in on this. While some worry about who will fill their seats if they are not here or how the body could possibly function without them, the legislature was here long before any of us came and will be here long after all of us leave. I would ask those members to look to your pages, your interns, and the younger people that have been throughout this building and see the work that they have done in this building every day. We often tell them that we hope one day they'll sit in our seats. I hope this committee will agree with me that there's always leaders willing to step up in South Dakota. Many of them help us as daily interns and pages in this very building. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other proponents here in the room? SJR 501.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Jack Kovac, District 13, representative from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I want to support SJR 501, and I'll give you a couple of reasons. I have been a proponent of term limits since I started here actually 10 years ago. I believe that a term limit is appropriate. I think this here SJR 501 is written to respect the knowledge and the work ethic of our legislature. I also think that people can bring that knowledge and that back to the Senate and also to the House for 8-year term limits. And I just want you to know that it does not affect me at this point in time. I was appointed back here, so I would be eligible to run for a total of 16 more years at this point in time. But I've been a opponent for term limits. I've voted for it every year that it has came forth, and I would respect if you would vote to pass this SJR 501. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any other proponents in the room? Okay, online then we have Angie Kleberg. Can you hear us? If so, state your name, who you represent, and proceed.
Hi, yes, I can hear you. Good afternoon. Thank you, committee members and Chair Odenbach. My name is Angie Kleberg, and I am a longtime resident of Aberdeen, living in District 3, and I'm representing myself. As a 30-year South Dakota constituent, I am excited to support Senate Joint Resolution 501. Voters having an opportunity to decide on legislative term limits has been a popular request, and I thank Senator Roll for listening to South Dakota citizens, particularly in Northeast South Dakota, in bringing this resolution forward to you today. South Dakota legislature has prided itself in being a citizen-led state where legislators serve their communities and then return to private life. Term limits help ensure that public service remains rooted in the community experience. They create regular opportunities for farmers, teachers, small business owners, healthcare workers, and other citizens to bring fresh perspectives into the legislative process. When legislators know their time in office is limited, they remain focused on serving their constituents rather than maintaining long-term political careers. Term limits help ensure elected officials remain connected to the people they represent and responsive to changing community needs. While everything I said in my argument is for the benefit of term limits, a vote yes from this committee would simply allow the voters to consider and decide their position as citizens of our great state. I ask you today to trust the people of South Dakota. After all, our Constitution belongs to the people, not just the legislature. Again, this resolution is about process. It does not ask you to take a position on the term limits itself. It simply affirms that the voters decide and deserve the opportunity to decide. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other proponent here in the room? It'll be online. Okay, we'll turn to opponent testimony. Are there opponents to SJR 501? Welcome, Representative Naustrup.
Thank you, Mr. Leader and committee. First, let's start with local control. If this passes, the voters statewide decide who should be on the ballot in your district. Wouldn't you prefer the voters in your district make that decision as to who should represent them in the legislature instead of the statewide voters? So that's the first issue, is local control is better served by our current system than this proposed system. So one of the questions I would ask is, what's the problem? There's two possibilities. One is too much experience, and the other possibility is not enough experience. Look around, what do you think the answer is? Too much experience or not enough? A couple of statistics that I came up with was we have an election, and then we'd come to Pierre in January. On the day we walk into the Capitol, the average experience is 91 days in the seat. 91 days in the House. And the average experience in the Senate is 120 days to do a very complicated job. This bill, if enacted, would limit 608 days in a row. In the business world, a business work year is 250 days. So basically what this is, so if you take the 608 days it's limited to, divided by 38, you get 2.5 years. What we've got after 16 years of experience here, we've got 2.5 years of real world experience, not 16. What this bill would do is empower the lobbyist and the executive branch by taking experience away from the legislative branch. One of the other questions you have to ask, if I look back at experience, or how many people would this apply to in the last 25 years? To the best of my research, 4 legislators. 2 of them are longtime appropriators. Do we need less experience on the Appropriation Committee? The other question you'd ask is, if it influences 4 legislators in 25 years, the ballot tends to get cluttered. Does it make sense to clutter the ballot with an issue that involves 4 legislators? You've heard this before, but I'll repeat it. There are term limits. Every 2 years, the voters decide who they want to send to appear to represent them. I've been a big supporter of term limits in Washington, D.C., and I'll explain that. The problem in D.C. is legislators are 90 years old, and it takes $100 million to unseat them. That's not the case in South Dakota. We're not 90 years old, and it doesn't take $100 million to unseat a longtime legislator. As a matter of fact, of the legislators that were, of the 4, 2 of them got unseated by the elections. They lost an election. So I guess what I would summarize this with is, when we're talking 4 legislators in 25 years, I think it's a solution looking for a problem. I would appreciate a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any other opponents here in the room? Okay. And I don't see any opponents online. Oh, there's one. Come on down.
I'm generally hard to miss, but thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Bill Van Camp. I'm a registered lobbyist and lawyer and peer. I'm here representing the Retailers Association. You know, we oppose this bill on the Senate side, and our main argument was ballot cluster and what we're looking at in this next cycle. And also, and I'm agreeing with the previous speaker here, this seems to be a solution in search of a problem. This affects exactly 2 members sitting here today. I've been here longer than 16 years. My joke over there was I'm not going to be here another 16. But when you look at the body, and I discovered this link on the LRC website, there are 30 people in the House right now that this is their first term. And this is anecdotal. I didn't go back and do the research, but that's been the way it's been for a number of years now. There are 20 in the Senate that this is their first 2-year term in the Senate out of 35. We don't have a problem here. We don't have institutional legislators and leaders like we used to when I was growing up. Now, the constitutional amendment passed in '92, and I remember some of those folks that I studied about in high school and in college, but we don't have Bud Wood anymore. You know, I knew Jerry Lammers. We don't have Jerry Lammers anymore. We turn over here because it's a tough job. It's largely thankless, and I admire all of you for choosing to run for office. But right now, this ballot measure doesn't seem to be addressing a problem that exists in South Dakota, and for that reason, we would oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents here in the room? Welcome, Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm mostly a me too on this, but I think it's important to look at the Constitution because that is what voters approved, and that is what their intent was. And the Constitution says no person may serve more than 4 consecutive terms or a total of 8 consecutive years in the Senate, and more than 4 consecutive terms or a total of 8 consecutive years in the House of Representatives. So the key word is consecutive. That's what the voters approved. That's what they wanted. It's been this way for almost 25 years. I urge a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other opponents? Okay. Then we have had some opponent testimony, so we'll stop with that and give the prime a chance for a rebuttal.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. District 1 State Senator Mike Roll. And I guess just addressing the opponent's concerns, the representative from District 3 actually supported our federal constitution being open and putting term limits in there for Congress. So I think it's a case of kind of rules for thee, but not for me. And there really isn't another way to cut that, because if his claim is that term limits take power away from the legislator and give it to the lobbyists, why would he support putting term limits on other legislators at a higher level? That doesn't make any sense. Again, this doesn't cap lifetime this isn't a capping at lifetime service. It's saying 16 straight years, and you need to take 1 2-year break, and you can come right back. And that's if the voters even approve this. If we don't think it's what the people want, there really shouldn't be concern from opponents that this could even pass. But I think we all know this is truly what the majority of South Dakotans do want. And while we may only have 2 members that this, would currently apply to, we certainly have more in the past. But quite frankly, if voters passed the North Dakota or Missouri-style ballot measure, allowing 8 lifetime years for a body, how many members of this body would that affect? I would suggest quite a few. And I think we should be wary of the fact that other states have had this same conversation, have decided not to pull the trigger, and then the voters came and did it for them in a much worse fashion. And then now they can't undo it. They would have to send it back to the voters to get approval, and they can't even get it out of their legislatures. I think that's a scary thing. I do think 8 years lifetime cap is a bad idea. But I guess if we don't proceed with this, I think we will see it in the next decade. Multiple other states have.
Thank you. Well, that will close the taking of public testimony and turn to questions from the committee. Any questions from the committee? All right, I don't see any. Then I will turn to committee discussion and/or action. Tired group today. Been a long day or what?
Mr. Chair.
Were you all here at 7 this morning?
Mr. Chair,
Representative.
I move due pass.
No, we moved to discussion. Representative Emery moved due pass. Is there a second? Second by Representative Healy. Any discussion on the due pass motion?
No, I think the prime sponsor summed it up pretty well.
Any further discussion? Representative Heineman.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I moved substitute motion.
State your motion.
Moved the 41st day.
Motion by Heineman, seconded by Schaefbauer, I believe, to move to the 41st day. Is there any discussion on that? Go ahead.
Thank you. I think it was pretty apparent there appears to be some forces working here, but the issue, we had a huge turnover 2 years ago. Of course, I'm back from my 8th year. I wouldn't be affected by this unless I'm going to be 90 years old, but and I'm not planning to do that. But I think the voters can choose. I support that idea. I think it's appropriate what we have. Look at the youth and the turnover that we had for 2 years ago. So I ask you to support this motion.
Any other discussion on the 41st day motion? Representative Schaefbauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe we already have term limits, and it's called elections. We need our citizens to get out and vote. And I am going to concur with the representative at the way end. I've been here for 4 years, and both terms, we have had a new crop of 30-some legislators. So I'm trusting our voters to say, if you're not doing the job that we elected you to do, we will vote you out. So that's why I'm resisting this motion, why I am going for the 41st day motion. Thank you.
Representative Gosh.
Just for the record, I don't think Representative Heineman looks a day over 55.
No. Any other discussion on the 41st day motion? Okay, then the motion is to send SJR 501 to the 41st day. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, nay. The clerk will please call the roll.
No. Representative Baumüller.
No.
Emery.
No.
Gosh. Hanson.
Aye.
Healy.
No.
Heineman.
Aye.
Jamison.
Aye.
Lems.
Aye.
May. Reich excused. Schaefbauer. Overwig.
Aye.
Odenbach.
Aye.
9 ayes, 3 nays, 1 excused.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. After receiving a majority of members-elect, the 41st day motion passes. SJR 501 is sent to the 41st day. With that, we will move on to SJR 502, applying to the United States Congress under Article 5 of the United States Constitution to call for a convention proposing an amendment to the Constitution fixing the number of justices of the United States Supreme Court at 1 Chief Justice and 8 Associate Justices. We will allot 8 minutes aside. Proponent testimony. Welcome, Senator Roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. District 1 State Senator Mike Roll. Before us with SJR 502, as the chair just said, it's basically trying to cap the Supreme Court, and I just want to give you guys a little bit of history on it. So the Judiciary Act of 1789 actually set the Supreme Court at 6 justices. Just 12 years later, the Judiciary Act of 1801 actually dropped the court to 5 justices in an attempt to deprive Thomas Jefferson of an appointment. The following year, in 1802, Congress increased that court back to 6 justices. Just 5 years later, in 1807, the court went from 6 justices to 7 justices. 3 decades later, in 1837, the court actually went from 7 to 9, followed by in 1863, the court was expanded to its largest ever membership of 10 justices. And in 1866, following the assassination of President Lincoln, Congress actually reduced the court from 10 down to 7 in a direct effort to deprive Andrew Johnson of appointing justices to the court. In 1869, following the election of President Grant, Congress actually restored the bench to 9. 68 years later, the court has settled at 9. Now, FDR actually tried to expand the court to 15 justices to stop the court from blocking part of the New Deal. Shortly after the bill to expand was filed, the Supreme Court all of a sudden started upholding New Deal policies where in the past they were actually opposing them. This was a direct example of Congress's ability to alter the composition of the court, having measurable ramifications on the independence of the third branch. And obviously, as many of you guys might remember, in 2021, Democratic representatives and senators actually brought a bill to expand the court from 9 to 13. Our lone congressman, Dusty Johnson, recognized this danger and filed a bill to constitutionally cap the court at 9. Congress refused to give it a hearing. He has since filed the bill each session since without getting that hearing. Recent years have brought more calls to pack the court or expand the court. As defenders of the Constitution, the Supreme Court's check on the executive and legislative branch is essential to keeping our government free and fair. Turning the Supreme Court into a political football will further erode public trust in our institution and nullify intentions set by our founding fathers. Capping the court at 9 justices will protect the integrity of the Supreme Court. I would also argue that calls from both political parties at the time to eliminate the Senate filibuster increases the probability of a future attempt to alter the court for political purposes. Again, our lone congressman has fought to save the Supreme Court's composition, and I believe our legislature should take real steps to try to support him. I would say, I mean, obviously we know it's in Article 5, and I don't want to dive too much into that because I know you guys have heard that this year and probably every year prior to that. But I would say, for those of you guys that are worried about an Article 5 call or have been in the past, I would like to note that this call is significantly different than every call I've seen in the South Dakota legislature. Previous calls have stated problems and hoped the convention would come and propose solutions. This not only addresses the problem, it also encompasses an actual desired solution in the call. Hopefully this will eliminate some concern of a runaway convention, as the states agreeing to the call are also agreeing to the stated solution. I personally would agree that this would be way easier to have Congress just propose an amendment for the ratification, but Congress wouldn't even give the bill a hearing. Washington, D.C. has become completely dysfunctional. The third branch of government is too important to the stability of our nation, and I ask the committee to support our congressman's efforts to call for a cap of the Supreme Court at 8 associate justices and 1 chief justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other proponent testimony for SJR 502? Okay, and Oh, there he goes. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I came to speak on this to see if I could grow hair like the good senator grows hair. Maybe by supporting this, he'll give me some of his whatever treatment he's using, and I can use that. Okay. So just to be serious here, I just wanted to share 4 reasons why I think it's a good idea to keep it at 9.
Before you do that, would you just state your name and where you're from for the record, please?
Greg Jameson, District 12, Sioux Falls.
Thank you so much.
I was working on my joke all this time, and then I forgot. All right, so first is the preservation of judicial independence. The most common argument in this changing the number of justices in response to specific rulings is a form of court packing. Proponents of the current size argue that if one party expands the court to achieve favorable outcomes, the opposing party will do the same once they regain power. This creates that tit-for-tat cycle that could eventually render the court a purely political body rather than an independent branch of government. Second is the public legitimacy and trust. The Supreme Court relies on public acceptance, the idea that people will follow its rulings, even if they disagree with them. Expanding the court for ideological reasons can make the institution look like a legislature in robes. The number of 9 has been the standard for over 150 years. The longevity provides a sense of settled law and tradition that bolsters the court's authority in the eyes of the public. Third is the deliberative efficiency. There's a practical argument regarding the optimal size of a deliberative body. Manageability of it. A group of 9 is large enough to respect the variety of legal philosophies, but small enough to engage in deep, rigorous private debate. Next is the committee problem. A much larger court, 15 to 21, would become cumbersome, making it hard to reach a consensus and potentially leading to more fractured, confusing legal opinions. Finally, fourth, continuity of law. The Supreme Court's primary job is to provide clear, stable interpretations of the law. A sudden influx of new justices could lead to a rapid overturning of long-standing precedents. Expansion would create a chaotic legal environment where businesses, individuals, and lower courts cannot rely on the law staying the same for one election cycle to the next. Please support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. About a minute or so to go. Are there any other proponents here in the room for SJR 502? Okay, anybody online? Nobody online? No other proponents? Okay, then we'll turn to opponents. Are there opponents in the room?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Linda Schauer, Concerned Women for America, LAC. Yes, Article 5 again. I'm back. Pages passing out quotes from signers of the Constitution and also constitutional scholars. Some words stand out to me. Reagan's quote stands out. He says, "Once it's open, they could take up any number of things." And Chief Justice Warren Burger said, "No effective way to limit or muzzle the actions, a free-for-all." I met Senator Rounds in an office in the airport some years ago, and we discussed this, and his quote was, "Be careful what you ask for." You can see these constitutionalists were very skeptical of a second convention. Any topic for an Article 5 convention, no matter how good it may be, is a pathway to having an amendments convention. In 2015, this legislature passed a balanced budget application. Last year, term limits application was passed. Now we have Supreme Court justices. I wonder what the topic will be next year. Actually, the topic is irrelevant. It still opens the Constitution. Convention delegates are sovereign representatives of the people, and they would have more power than state legislatures and Congress combined. Delegates aren't subject to the limiting language of state applications or so-called faithful delegate laws. Article 5 refers to amendments, plural. So once you have a convention, it cannot be limited to one topic, such as the number of Supreme Court justices. It would be open to any topic the delegates want to bring. To me, that's risky. This isn't a game we are playing. It's our Constitution, our country. I don't want to put it on the chopping block. Robert Kelly is a staff attorney with Convention of States, and he stated that he wants to open up Article 1, 2, and 3. That's our 3 branches of government. That's the very structure of our government. Just because SJR 502 states 9 justices, the convention they could change it to 5 or 13 or 15 or 21. In fact, Michael Farris, the co-founder of Convention of States Project, was quoted in WorldNet Daily, and I quote, "I would propose reconfiguring the Supreme Court after the model of the European Court of Human Rights. There are 46 nations in that court's jurisdiction, and every nation appoints 1 judge. We should expand the Supreme Court to 50 justices, 6 to 8 years each, with no right of reappointment. Remember, a convention would include delegates from all 50 states, red states and blue states. Who would you trust with this founding document? Don't put this document at risk. Please oppose SJR 502. Thank you."
Thank you. Any other opponents? Okay, we have a couple online, beginning with, on my list, Michael Boyle. Mr. Boyle, can you hear us? Please state your name,
Yes.
say who you're with. There's about 5 or so minutes left. Go ahead.
My name is Michael Boyle, and for some reason my camera's not working. I apologize. But I just wanted to communicate a couple quick points. One is that, this is not something where the states are controlling the process. Just like we don't control Congress, Congress is going to control the process of an Article 5 convention. They're the ones that are going to make the rules. We can make an idea of, hey, we want to have a convention, and we can even request the topic, but we can't limit the topic in any way, and Congress is going to be the one that's going to set the rules. And I just wanted to read 2 quick Supreme Court opinions. This is Hawk versus Smith. It says the 5th article is a grant of authority by the people to Congress. It's not authority granted by the states. It's granted by the people when we ratified the Constitution. The determination of the method of ratification is the exercise of a national power specifically granted by the Constitution. That power is conferred upon Congress and is limited to 2 methods by action of the legislatures of 3/4 of the states or conventions in a like number of states. The framers of the Constitution might have adopted a different method. Ratification might have been left to a vote of the people or to some authority of government other than that selected. The language of the article is plain and admits of no doubt in its interpretation. It is not the function of courts or legislative bodies, national or state, to alter the method which the Constitution has fixed. And I realize that quote is in particular talking about the method of ratification, but we just had a federal court case come out essentially saying that the application process has the same authority as the ratification process. This is a federal process. Congress is entrusted by we the people to run it. It is not going to be run by the states. And I would just ask you to vote no, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle. Next up, with a couple minutes to go on our timer here, is Eldon Stahl. Mr. Stahl, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, please state your name, who you're with, and proceed.
Okay, I'm Eldon Stahl. I'm representing myself against SJR 502.
You may have heard some of the proponents saying they don't want a convention, but instead they just want to scare Congress into proposing a desired amendment. Often they point to the 17th Amendment as an example. That's one data point that seems to support their hypothesis that getting close to triggering a convention has worked over 200 years to scare Congress into proposing a desired amendment rather than risking a convention. That's one data point. How scientific is that? But if you look at the handout I gave you, you see at the top of the page 2, there's a table with 10 data points of when there was a push for the states to apply for a convention and what Congress did. In 4 of them, including the Bill of Rights, a small percentage of states asked for a convention, and Congress proposed the amendment. Proponents might say, well, see, it only took a few states to apply for a convention, and Congress proposed the Bill of Rights. Well, not so fast. The preamble of the Bill of Rights specifically tells us why Congress proposed it. Quote, the conventions of a number of the states having at the time of their adopting the Constitution expressed a desire that further declaratory and restrictive clauses should be added, end of quote. In other words, not because 2 states applied for a convention after ratification, but because before ratifying the Constitution, states demanded assurances that a Bill of Rights be proposed as a condition for ratification. Plus, if the proponents' theory were true, wouldn't more applications for a convention be even more likely to get Congress to propose a desired amendment? You would think, but on the chart we see 5 cases, including the balanced budget amendment, where the states came sometimes within a hair of triggering a convention, and Congress did nothing. So we have 10 data points, and only one of them to support the proponent's strategy. Not only is the strategy of amending the Constitution unsafe, but it's also historically ineffective. So please kill SJR 502. But don't worry, the conventioneers will be back next year, as they've done about 20 times over the last 16 years with different bait on the same hook. And really, if you don't want a convention, it's very simple. Don't ask for one. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other opponents? Okay, we heard opposing testimony, so I'd give the prime a chance for a brief rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, District 1 State Senator Mike Roll, and to my good House Prime, wherever he went. I guess my secret to hair growth is just being 35 years old, but I can't help him with that. But as far as the bill, this isn't about Democrats or Republicans. Both sides have done this throughout history. They both have. It's documented. It's happened multiple times, and both parties have done it. Really, it's about stability and letting Congress know that they need to give this a hearing, or the states will do their job for them. Nothing at a convention can be ratified without 38 states approving it. Nothing. Not a single thing. This doesn't say that there's a problem, go fix it. This says that there's a problem, this is the answer. South Dakotans think it's important, and DC needs to take it seriously. This isn't about the COS or any other measures. This is about supporting our congressmen and asking the other states and asking if other states will join us in protecting the Supreme Court's composition. Our history has shown that the legislative branch has wielded power over the judicial branch on actual decisions being made. States agreeing to the call are inherently agreeing to the solution. Our founding fathers were very smart people. They left us this tool for a reason. They believed that people needed to have a way to have a say in their own government. They also seriously underestimated the future power of the Supreme Court. It was truly an afterthought when they first designed our government, and over time the court has grown, and it really started with the Marshall Court for those that have studied the history of it. But our lone congressman has fought for capping the court at 9, and I believe that capping the Supreme Court at 9 justices is what the majority of South Dakotans want.
Thank you. With that, we'll close the public testimony and turn to committee questions. Are there any questions from the committee? All right. Hearing no questions, we'll move on to committee discussion and/or action. Representative Overweg.
I move 41st date.
Motion by Overwig, seconded by Gosh to move this to the 41st day. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay. Representative Heineman,
Substitute motion,
state your motion, please.
do pass.
Motion is due pass by Rep. Heineman. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is due pass by Heineman, second by Jamison. Any discussion on the due pass motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I appreciate the senator bringing this particular issue, and I support his comments. I believe that this is one way to get to the issue of the Article 5. I think that that's the appropriate way. It takes 38 states to ratify anything that comes out of it. People just don't seem to get that, I guess. That's a high bar. That's 75% of the states. Think of that. We don't have anything in our Constitution that requires 75%. So I urge you to support the motion, do pass.
Any other discussion on the substitute due pass motion? Okay, and the motion is due pass on SJR 502. The clerk will please call the roll. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay.
Representative Baumüller.
No.
Emery.
Aye.
Gosh.
No.
Hanson. No. Healy.
No.
Heineman.
Aye.
Jamison.
Aye.
Lems.
No.
May. Reich, excused. Schaefbauer. No. May.
Aye.
Overwig.
No.
Odenbach.
No.
4 ayes, 9 nays. Oh, yeah, 1 excuse.
Say that total again, please.
5, I only have 4. I have 4 ayes, 8 yays, 1 excused.
Okay, after failing to receive a majority of members-elect, the substitute due pass motion fails. We are back to our original 41st day motion. Any other final thoughts or comments on that? Okay, then the motion is to send SJR 502 to the 41st day. Those in favor would say aye. Those opposed, no. Secretary would please call the roll.
Representative Baumüller.
Aye.
Emery.
Aye.
Gosh. Aye. Hanson.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Heineman.
Aye.
Jamison.
Aye.
Lems.
Aye.
May.
Aye.
Reich, excused. Schaefbauer. Overwig.
Aye.
Odenbach.
Aye.
12 ayes, 1 excused.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. After receiving a majority of members-elect, the 41st day motion passes. Senate Joint Resolution 502 is sent to the 41st day. That brings us to our last item up for business, Senate Joint Resolution 504, entitled Proposing and Submitting to the Voters at the Next General Election an Amendment to the Constitution of the State of South Dakota providing for wagering on sporting events via mobile or electronic platform. We will allocate, probably 10 minutes aside or so to that one. And we are looking for proponent testimony at this time.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Greg Jamison, District 12, Sioux Falls. Try to keep this fairly brief. This really has 3 pieces to it. Letting the voters decide the action here, and then allowing the legislature, if it's passed by the voters, to set up the guardrails. Secondly, this mobile sports wagering is currently occurring in our state. It's just either getting done illegally or across or near an imaginary line in the dirt with another state. The efforts here are to create revenues for a property tax relief effort, and I ask for your approval. There are many others who would like to testify, so I'm trying to be brief.
Oh, sorry, any other proponent testimony, SJR 504?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Steve Kobeck. I'm a District 2 Senator, Brandon, South Dakota. Every day, Brandon competes with Sioux Falls. We compete for restaurants. We compete for food. Restaurants gas stations, everything you can think of. So that's what we do. We try to get that sales tax into Brandon because we have to compete with Sioux Falls. That's where our people work. This is no different. If you look at the location of the Iowa Casino, it's right next to my district. Every day, almost every day, I get people asking me why they can't do this in South Dakota. So that's why I'm here today. If you wanted to download an app today, right now, at this table, if we could use visual aids, you could download it and bet. So we can do that. So what happens with that? Why do we have to drive across the border to Iowa to do that? Because they have geofence betting. We have betting in Deadwood already. We just can't do this because we chose not to geofence. For property tax relief, we've come up with lots of ideas, and that's what this is about. But to keep the norm and to do nothing is to ensure that the current situation, to do nothing is to keep the current situation, which is you can download an app today and bet. You can't expand on what everyone has access to today. We feel it's out of control, and we feel that right now, with this mobile betting, it's chaos. We've been talking about it for years, and that's kind of what it all boils down to. That's it. If you think we should fight, if you think we should compete, then I think we should give it to the voters. If the voters take it, we can put some bumpers around it. Right now, there are no bumpers around it. There could be minors gambling. Anyone can download that app. We're going to have a 18 and above app verification bill coming out. There isn't anything on these right now. All you can do is go to Iowa or go someplace else and place a bet legally. If you want to do it illegally, again, you can do it now. So that's why we do not feel that this is an expansion of gambling. In my district, this is happening, and it's just a flood of money going across the border. So please support.
Thank you. Any other proponent testimony? Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, my name is Caleb Arsenault. I'm the president of the Deadwood Gaming Association and the CEO of Live Hospitality. And I stand here in front of you, or sit in front of you, in support of SJR 504. The resolution before you today does one simple and important thing. It allows the voters of South Dakota to decide whether statewide sports betting should be legal through the city of Deadwood and in our tribal casinos. The resolution does not legalize sports betting on its own. It does not expand casinos, pick winners or losers, or even set regulations. It merely asks a constitutional question and places that decision where it belongs with the people of South Dakota. Mobile sports betting already exists today, but it exists outside our regulated system. South Dakotans are using illegal offshore websites or traveling out of state and using the predictive markets, some of which you may have heard of, Polymarket, Kalshi, or a couple, where there are no consumer protections, no oversight, and no benefit to the state of South Dakota. SJR 504 gives voters the opportunity to decide whether that activity should instead be regulated, accountable, and anchored to our existing gaming institutions. Excuse me. Importantly, this framework respects South Dakota's gaming structure. Statewide sports betting, if approved by voters, would operate only through the City of Deadwood licensed gaming operators and our tribal casinos. This preserves the central role while using modern technology to serve our sports betting population statewide. And there's also a fiscal consideration. South Dakotans are facing ongoing pressure from rising property taxes, of which is one of the anchor issues of this legislative session. A voter-approved sports betting framework could provide the legislature with a new voluntary revenue source, one that does not raise property, income, or sales tax, and could be used to help address the property tax relief by dedicating 90% of that tax revenue from statewide mobile sports betting. SJR 504 is about choice, transparency, and respect for voters, regardless of where someone stands on sports betting. This resolution ensures that the decision is made democratically, not through courts or out-of-state operators. It allows this legislative body to set excuse me, the parameters surrounding statewide sports betting. I should have brought water. I respectfully ask you to support SJR 504 and allow South Dakotans to vote on statewide sports betting. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'll stand by for questions, and I think we have 3 other proponents joining us remotely. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents here in the room? Any other proponents in the room? Okay, then we will move to online proponents, beginning with John Pappas. We've got about 5-6 minutes left. Mr. Pappas, can you hear us? If so, state your name, who you're with, and proceed.
I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is John Pappas, and I serve as a senior advisor for GeoComply. GeoComply is the leading geolocation compliance and digital identity and anti-fraud technology company, and we work with mobile sports betting operators throughout the country. And in fact, we are licensed and approved in neighboring states of Iowa and Wyoming. There's been a lot of discussion in this hearing already about people traveling across the border and activity already happening in the state. While we only work with legal and licensed online sports books, we do notice that there is tremendous demand for legal sports betting in the state of South Dakota. So I'd encourage you, if you haven't seen, I have slides prepared if they're available. I can't tell from where I'm sitting here. The slides are available. If you look at slide 1, it shows that there is tremendous demand from last year. Just looking at the full year 2025, we recorded nearly 1.6 million geolocation checks from approximately 55,000 sports wagering player accounts located in South Dakota. These accounts were attempting to access legal sports books in other states. Our technology identified that they were within South Dakota, so they were not able to place a bet. If you go to the next slide, you'll see a more narrow view of looking just at the football season. So from September 1 through the Super Bowl, which just ended a couple weeks ago. And in that small window, we saw over 930,000 geolocation checks from approximately 36,000 distinct sports wagering accounts. The volume of activity during this peak season highlights both the scale of consumer demand and the importance of establishing a secure and compliant marketplace. The data shows that there is a major demand within the state, but then we also see that those people also travel outside of the state to wager. It was noted that area between Sioux Falls and the Grand Falls Casino, and our data shows that there's been tremendous activity in that area during this during the football season and throughout the year. So we know that people are traveling very clearly geolocated within South Dakota, and then moments later geolocated in Iowa where they can legally place a bet. I know time is limited, so I'll abridge my remarks. If you have any questions for me, I will gladly answer them at the end of the hearing.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pappas. Got a minute or so left here. Carmen Schramm, proponent, are you online and can you hear us?
I am, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
State your name, who you're with, and proceed.
Thank you. My name is Carmen Schramm, and I'm the Executive Director of the Tourism Coalition of South Dakota. And on behalf of the tourism industry, I rise in support of SJR 504. South Dakota residents and many of our visitors are already crossing state lines to place mobile sports wagers in neighboring states where it's legal. And we're losing valuable tax revenue that could otherwise support our communities and property tax owners. SJR 504 simply keeps those dollars here at home. So gaming plays an important part in our visitor experience. Modernizing our laws to reflect how people actually engage with gaming today helps keep our state competitive with others that are already offering those services. Importantly, this proposal keeps oversight with the South Dakota Commission on Gaming. This ensures strong regulation, consumer protections, and accountability, and it keeps the system transparent and locally controlled. SJR 504 allows the voters to decide, so it keeps revenue in South Dakota, ensures we regulate, and benefit from an activity that's already happening. So we ask that you support this initiative, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Schramm. Last up is Brendan Bussman. About a minute here for
Hello, Chairman.
Brief Me Too. State your name, who you're with, please proceed.
Hi, Brendan Bussman with B Global. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. In addition to Me Too and the testimony that I've submitted, the one thing I will say about SJR 504 is a simple way that the voters can move this forward. Should the voters approve this, This body will come back next year and put the parameters around that and how this can be done, and not evade, as we were seeing with offshore and prediction markets today, that are ignoring your current laws on the books of allowing wagers to take bets on South Dakota schools and those activities that, including elections in your state. I would appreciate a affirmative vote on SJR 504 today and look forward to any questions the body may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Busman. Are there any other proponents in the room? If not, then we're done with online as well, so I will turn to opponent testimony. We ate up about 12 minutes for the proponents, so I'll do the same for the opponents. 12 minutes, opponent testimony.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Michael Pauley, Executive Director of the South Dakota Catholic Conference. We represent the Catholic Bishops of South Dakota on public policy matters. Just 2 months ago, Pope Leo XIV was speaking to a National Association of Local Government Leaders in Italy, and he made an urgent plea for these officials to focus on a specific social problem. He said, and I quote, "I would like to draw attention in particular to the scourge of gambling, which ruins many families," close quote. Our current Pope is a somewhat quiet, soft-spoken man, not one who frequently invokes the word scourge to describe a current social reality. But if you look at what commercialized, predatory gambling does to our culture, I believe his choice of words are on target. This is how Mark Gottlieb, the head of the Public Health Advocacy Institute, describes modern sports gambling, and I quote, "What has been launched on a large swath of the American people is a newly created and AI-generated online gambling business model which delivers a fundamentally different, defectively designed, and inherently dangerous gambling product accessed through every phone, tablet, computer, and television. This new and AI-fueled business model will inexorably result in increased gambling addiction and gambling-related harm, including financial ruin, desperation, suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety, career loss, divorce separation, criminal behavior, homelessness, co-occurring alcohol and drug disorders, and deep despair." Just last year, a team of researchers from UCLA and the University of Southern California published a paper entitled "The Financial Consequences of Legalized Sports Gambling." Here's what they found, and I quote, "When states introduce access to online sports gambling, average credit scores decline by 2.75 points. The decline in credit score is associated with changes in indicators of excessive debt. We find a substantial increase in average bankruptcy rates, debt sent to collections, use of debt consolidation loans, and auto loan delinquencies. Together, these results indicate that the ease of access to sports gambling is harming consumer financial health by increasing their level of debt," close quote. Mr. Chairman, I could go on and quote more studies, but the hour is late, so I'll get to the point. There is a small mountain of social science research that points to the cultural and economic harms created by the expansion of gambling. And I think the question, if I may be bold, that I think the committee members should be considering is, what impact will this have on the state and the demands that will be created on social safety net programs that are already under strain due to limited budgets? The resolution before you today comes with an enticement. We'll tax mobile sports betting, and all that revenue will go to property tax relief. But the problem is the social and economic destruction caused by gambling is going to drive more individuals and families to be seeking help from the government. So it's like a shell game. You may grant some tax release in one area, but if there's a corresponding increase in demand for public assistance programs, you'll have to hike taxes in some other area to compensate. I want to make just one last comment on the revenue question. There was a study of state revenues from gambling conducted by the Rockefeller Institute of Government at the State University of New York. The title of that report is very revealing. The title is "State Revenues from Gambling, Short-Term Relief long-term disappointment. And when you dig into the report, here's the bottom line, and I quote again, "In the short run, states indeed do raise additional revenues due to expansion of gambling activities and facilities. However, history shows that in the long run, the growth in state revenues from gambling activities slows or even reverses and declines. In short, the revenue returns deteriorate and often quickly." Close quote. Just in conclusion, I'll just say that in the town where I grew up, there's a popular bar called Chilkoot Charlie's. This bar has an official motto, which has received some national notoriety. It goes like this: "We cheat the other guy and pass the savings on to you." And all humor aside, I think that's descriptive of the proposal before you today. We'll give you some property tax relief paid for by gambling addicts, but the promise is illusory. In the long run, the growth of gambling addiction is going to cost society more money than we gain. And for those reasons, we'd respectfully ask you to oppose Senate Joint Resolution 504. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pauly. Any other opponent testimony? We're about 5 minutes in.
Okay, thank you, Chair Odenbach and Vice Chair Overweg and members of the committee for letting me testify today on the Senate Joint Resolution 504. My name is Frank Starr Comes Out. I'm the current president of the Oglala Sioux Tribe. I'm also the chairman of the Great Plains region, which is about 17 tribes. Today, I appear before you today to oppose SJR 504 as currently drafted, unless certain amendments are made to provide tribes an equal opportunity to conduct statewide online sports wagering and to ensure that Deadwood casinos do not violate federal laws by offering online sports wagering on Indian lands. Therefore, the Oglala Sioux Tribe supports Amendment SJR 504B offered by Representative Puyer, which makes these important changes. So I just want to stress that we do support it, but with amendments. First, tribes in South Dakota should be included in any opportunity to conduct statewide online sports wagering on equal footing with Deadwood casinos. On the reservation, every dollar and revenue generates from tribal gaming supports tribal communities and must be as specified in the Federal Indian Gaming Regulatory Act. IGRA governs all gaming activities on Indian land, including any gaming conducted by non-tribal persons. Finally, the opportunity to place tribes on equal footing with Deadwood in conducting statewide online sports wagering is now allowing Deadwood casinos to conduct statewide online sports wagering without tribes would place the tribes at a significant competitive disadvantage. Delayed tribal entry in statewide online sports wagering would likely foreclose the tribe from generating any meaningful revenues, to the ultimate harm of tribal members and the surrounding communities that depend on tribal investments. That concludes my testimony, and thank you for letting me testify here today. Just want to also mention that consultation is very important when you're dealing with tribal nations, and I want you to all be aware of that when dealing with tribal nations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We've got about 4 or 5 minutes left here. A few people wanting to testify both in person, and I do have a list of online as well, so.
Thank you. Chet Ellsworth for myself and as an eyewitness, so part of the process of the SJR 504. Mr. Chair, can I speak to the process?
Yeah, just beware of the time.
I present to the committee, I'm handing out 2 sets of minutes that occurred for meetings that occurred on February 6th, where this was decided, this was first brought forward in 2 different committees. And in those documents, it shows that they both started at the same time, and one of them had 2 of its senators over in the other committee testifying. And so the question came up, and I was there for one of the meetings. So how can 2 senators be in both meetings at the same time? And the minutes in the meeting.
Mr. Ellsworth, could you suspend for just a second? We need you to keep to the merits of this bill. Time's valuable. We're not sure what you're talking about
I'm speaking to the process.
The process.
Yes.
We'd like you to speak to the bill itself, sir.
Okay, you're in contempt.
There's no contempt whatsoever.
Contempt.
We just need you speaking to the bill, sir.
Okay, well, I'll end up by just... the excusals granted when the committee was not in session was extremely prejudicial, and I asked for a no vote.
Thank you. Any other opponent testimony?
Thank you, members of the committee. Appreciate the time. I'm Ryman LeBon, the chairman of the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe. And quite simply, one size does not fit all. As written, SJR 504 allows Deadwood casinos to take online sports wagers from individuals throughout the state, but it does not do the same for tribes. And that's what we want. We want to be on that same level, want it to be fair, and we need the amendment to the 504. With the amendment, tribes would be allowed to take online sports wagers from individuals located on their own reservations. That is unjust, and we want to go outside of the reservation. We want to get into the markets throughout the state, similar as Deadwood would have. So we want it to, again, we want it to be equal footing. And this amendment clarifies that online wagers take place on Indian lands as long as the gaming servers are located on our Indian lands. This amendment would clear the way for tribes as lawfully engage in online sports betting gaming under the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act.
Sir, you're speaking to an amendment to this bill that has not been moved or voted on. So
yes.
I need you to speak to the bill that we have under consideration, and then at such time as an amendment may or may not have been, if it's been made and we're in the discussion on that amendment, that's proper for discussion. But right now, we are just discussing Senate Joint Resolution 504.
Right. So do you want me to wait?
That would be preferable. And
Okay.
if
'Cause
an
that's what mine-
amendment is under consideration, then that would be proper to discuss it at that time.
Chair?
We are taking opponent testimony at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents to SJR 504?
Norman Woods, Family Voice Action. On time, are we at the 12-minute?
We're about out of time, so.
Okay, I'll cut down to
some
just
brief
to
remarks.
just one single point that I had. We've had a lot of discussion about what would the future look like if this is passed. You know, there's the bets that are currently being placed. If we pass this, what's next? What does the future look like? Can we put the guardrails, the bumpers around? And I just want to point out some of the studies, because our nation and also the other states, they're already multiple years ahead of us. So this question of what will happen with the illegal markets, what will happen with the illegal bets, we don't have to guess. We already have those answers. So in 2022, 4 years after gaming was introduced, sports betting online nationally, the American Gambling Association sends a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland. They say a vast illegal sports betting market continues to exist. They say internet searches for illegal betting sites increased by 38% last year, faster than the rate for legal betting sites. So 4 years in, the Gaming Association is asking the Attorney General, hey, please take action because the searches for the illegal sites are still outpacing us. The majority of bets are still placed on those sites. The majority of searches are still for those sites. In Massachusetts, after legalization of this form of gaming, the rate of illegal bettors went from 4% to 18%. So the idea that all you have to do is put up some guardrails and then we can block out the black market and then we've got the industry all regulated well, the other states in our nation just doesn't show that that's the case. So the question here is, the illegal market is going to continue doing illegal things. Do you as the state want to play a part in an industry, and as the handout is sent out, where 70% of the revenue comes from 0.5% of the players? We don't think we should be lowering property taxes by taking more dollars from addicts, and we'd ask for your opposition.
Thank you. We are out of time for opponent testimony other than introduce yourself and give a me too at this point.
John Charter, District 2. These bets aren't just fun bets. They're multiple bets at once. They sound flashy, big winnings. The players don't understand them, and they lose. If they do understand them, they shut them down so they can't win. It's rigged against them. It hurts young men. Please don't finance our state this way.
Thank you. Any other opponent testimony to SJR 504?
Linda Shower, Concerned Women for America, LAC, we oppose.
Thank you. Any other opponent testimony to SJR 504?
Representative Pre-Poyer, District 27, an opponent testimony. Opponent testimony did speak to the amendment only because there will not be an opponent or proponent testimony on the amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Any other? Do we have any other opponents in the room want to give a brief me too? Otherwise, we have a few here that are listed as online opponents to SJR 504. The first one I have is Jennifer Hughes. We just have time for you to introduce yourself and give a me too, state who you're with.
Thank you, sir. Jennifer Hughes. I'm an attorney and lobbyist for the Oglala Sioux Tribe, supporting their position in opposition to SJR 504, unless an amendment is made and included to include the tribal governments in statewide online sports wagering.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we've got Chairman Ryman LeBeau. Is he online? Okay, my apologies. Allie Moran, just a final me too.
Hello, Chair and committee members. Yes, the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe is in opposition to this bill unless made with the amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other opponents that were online? I don't think so. We have a name on our list, Brendan Ludwig. Are you online, Mr. Ludwig, and wanting to give a brief me too?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Honorable Committee, Brendan Ludwig, Tribal Attorney for Oglala Sioux Tribe. Me too, opposing SJR 504 unless amended. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's it for opponent testimony.
Mr. Chair.
Matt Walls. I guess we have another one on the list here. Mr. Walls, are you there?
Mr. Chair. Yes, sir. Yes.
Please state your name, who you're with, and give a brief me too.
Thank you. Matt Walls, registered lobbyist for Keystone Treatment Center. We oppose this bill. I'd love to give a lot of different reasons, but I want to give a me too in respect to your time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other online? Okay. Final call for any in the room. Otherwise, we will give the prime a chance for a brief rebuttal.
Greg Jameson's District 12, Sioux Falls. Just kind of wanted to try to maybe bring it back a little bit and maybe help you think about this a little differently. I've talked to most of you individually about this bill and the challenges that are here today, but think of this, if you will. Think of a small town, South Dakota Main Street. You know, you can envision that in your head. Like Deadwood. And for decades, we've told people, if you want to buy a great pair of boots, you have to drive all the way to the historical shop in Deadwood to buy those boots. Well, the reality is people aren't driving all the way to Deadwood every time they want boots. They're just ordering them from an unlicensed overseas warehouse or driving across the state line to a modern mall in Iowa. This is exactly why we came up with the Wayfair Act. The SJR 504 solution. This bill isn't building a new storefront that competes with Deadwood. It's giving the Deadwood shop an online storefront. It allows the local businesses to handle the transaction via smartphone. Let's not force our gaming industry to operate like it's 1989. Please support this resolution.
Thank you. With that, we'll close the taking of public testimony and turn now to questions from the committee. Are there any questions from the committee?
Mr. Chair.
Representative Emery.
Can I have Caleb from Live?
Caleb from Live Hospitality. Come on down.
Great. So I guess my question is just to kind of speak to some of the, without getting into the amendment, but speaking to some of the opposition from the tribes and their opposition for not inclusion in this. Can you speak to that and how you see them either being included or not included in this?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Arsenault.
Yeah, Caleb Arsenault, the president of the Deadwood Gaming Association. I'm also confused. Anything that Deadwood can do in terms of games that are in the Constitution, when we got Craps Keno Roulette, those games are also included with the tribe. It would be the same case with statewide mobile gaming. So the tribe would have every opportunity to put a server in their casino and conduct statewide online sports betting.
Follow up?
Okay. I'm not a expert on gaming at all, whether it's tribal gaming or not, but what would stop a tribe now from hosting a server on tribal lands and conducting sports betting now?
Mr. Arsenault.
Well, I'm not an attorney, Mr. Chair. I'm not an attorney, so I don't know. I guess I can't speak to the legal nature of that and the relationship between state and federal. That's probably a great question for an attorney. Mr. Tellinghusen, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, if there's somebody that can answer that question, I'm more than welcome.
I know he is an attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, Roger Tellinghusen, registered lobbyist for the Deadwood Gaming Association. I want to take you back just a little bit. 1989, when gaming was approved for Deadwood via the constitutional amendment, I was the Attorney General. And since that time, the same games that are authorized in Deadwood are allowed on tribal lands. They're sovereign lands, as you well know, Representative Emery. And in my opinion, under the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, should the voters in November approve statewide mobile sports wagering, in my opinion, any of the 11 casinos on tribal land in South Dakota right now, and the 3 or 4 that have sports wagering right now, could have mobile sports wagering within their reservation boundaries. And that would be something that Mr. Pappas from GeoComply could speak to if addressed, because they can geofence, as they do now in Deadwood, they geofence around the property of those 4 casinos in Deadwood that have sports wagering now. So you can place a mobile bet out in their parking lot, but you step off of their property, you can't. And it would be the same function on reservation property.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Representative Schaefbauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the prime.
Greg Jameson, District 12, reluctantly, the prime, I guess, to answer that kind of question. I don't know what it is.
I'll ask the question. I guess if you can't answer it, maybe somebody else can. But do you have any perceived revenue earnings off of a year of, let's say, sports betting, if this would pass?
Mr. Chair. Jameson.
I do have that. Kind of fun that I would have that. So the estimated new total revenue generated would be 4.5 or 5 million. That'd be the tax revenues that we would receive.
Follow up, Rep. Schaefbauer.
And then, thank you, Mr. Chair. And then 90% of that would go into a tax fund, and then 10% would go back to Deadwood? Is that how I'm understanding this?
No, I'm pretty sure that 4.5 or 5 is the 90%. That is the number. Currently, it's 1.2. I'm getting advice from the
Mr. Tellinghusen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Roger Tellinghusen, registered lobbyist for the Deadwood Gaming Association. The figures that Representative Jameson just shared with Representative Schaefbauer come from the Tax Foundation, which is a nonpartisan 501c3 corporation which provides tax policy advice around the United States. They're the ones that have come up with this figure of $4.5 to $5 million in revenue once the mobile sports wagering would stabilize. 90% of that would be put into the property tax relief fund. The other 10% would be dealt with however this legislature would decide it should be dealt with, whether it should go into other programs or into the general fund.
Follow up, Representative Schaefbauer.
I'm done with Representative Jameson. This would be for sorry. The Catholic Conference or Family Voice?
Looks like they chose Family Voice.
Okay. Do you have any statistics on when mobile bidding or mobile gambling went live in any of the other states, what the increase in the gambling rates were, in the bankruptcies, any of the negative outcomes that has affected, the population after mobile gambling?
Mr. Chair, Norman Woods, Family Voice Action. Yes, so after the states have legalized, the number of bets went up, which was predictable. So did the number of addictions. And at the bottom of the handout that I sent, actually Dave Ramsey was just the other day saying that this is the fastest growing addiction in America right now, targeting mostly 18 to 34-year-old young men. So a lot of the statistics on that handout are more towards legacy gaming, just broadly speaking. But we're already seeing that the addiction rates for sports betting are higher than what you could call the other traditional games.
Okay, any other questions? He has a clarifying follow-up question. One moment, hold on. Representative Schaefbauer.
Legacy gambling would be our slots, our roulette and stuff. Okay.
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Woods. Hang on, we've got Representative Heineman first.
Thank you, and I'll pose a question, not to you, but I would like to know where the legal opinion, or who came up with the legal opinion from the tribes that have testified as opposition, that they are excluded with this bill in its encapsulated case right now.
Representative Poirier.
Chair, if I recommend you punt to Jennifer Hughes online. She's the Oglala Sioux tribal attorney, and she is behind the legal analysis.
Jennifer Hughes, are you still online? Can you hear us?
Yes, sir, I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, did you hear the question?
I did. Thank you for the question. So the tribes would be excluded from doing statewide online sports wagering under SJR 504. Normally, under the IGRA framework, it is true that what you authorize for Deadwood is authorized for the tribe. But when it comes to statewide online gaming, the rules are different. And they're different now, and pretty recently have changed. So what happens now is not the normal IGRA framework. The tribes need specific language in the state law and in their compact. But for the purposes today, they need the language in the state law that will deem the gaming to occur to take place for the purposes of state and tribal law on the tribe's Indian lands where the server accepting the wagers is located. And that language is specifically taken from the United States Department of Interior's regulations pursuant to the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, which federally recognized tribes have to abide by. As mentioned, it governs all gaming on reservations. So the Department of Interior had followed a DC Circuit Court of Appeals case called West Flagler, which was the case just fairly recently that said that this model works, and this is the model that you use so that tribes can also do statewide, and that's a key term, statewide online gaming. West Flagler was the state of Florida in the Seminole Compact, and it was very famous, I guess, and in the Indian gaming world. But to your point, and kind of to get to the point, sir and committee, the tribes will not be able to do statewide online gaming like Deadwood does. So Deadwood is saying that they will get to do statewide, and what the tribes want to do is to be able to do statewide as well. As you may know, tribal gaming revenue, as the president said, is tribal government revenue. And what the tribes are seeking is an opportunity to raise some government revenue so that they can provide for their people and fund tribal programs. And statewide online gaming would be key to the tribes being able to do this. But as written, SJR 504 right now, it just doesn't include the necessary language under the IGRA, the federal law that we need to follow, and the language that is specifically included in the Department of Interior's regulations. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee on SJR 504? Okay. Representative
Chair.
Gosh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For Mr. Telhusen, I would assume, and please forgive my ignorance on this whole situation, but the legislature did just go through a pari-mutuel horse betting, bill, passed, signed. If this is put into place, do we not basically negate pari-mutuel horse betting then?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Tellinghausen.
Not at all. I mean, we've had Deadwood Gaming since 1989, and we've had pari-mutuel racing long before that, and it still exists today. What the recent bill that the legislature's passed and has been signed into law was to license the totalizer hubs so that those entities that were processing those bets were taxed. And then it also applies to out-of-state totalizer hubs as well that are allowing bets to be placed in South Dakota. So they're really kind of apples and oranges.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? All right, then we will move on to committee discussion
Mr.
and
Chair.
or. Oh, did you have a question?
I don't have a question.
Committee discussion and or action.
Can I move SJR 50B as in Bravo?
B is in Bravo. We have a motion to move Senate Joint Resolution 504B. I see that it is published. Is there a second to that motion? Motion and a second to move SJR 504B. Motion by Emery, second by Gosh. Any discussion on that motion?
I will hand it over to Representative Puyer since this is her amendment.
I don't think we can do that.
Okay. Okay, well, that's fine. I think I can speak to it. I think I can approach it. So I think the two chairmen that are here, as well as the lawyers that represent the tribes themselves, are making a good argument that there is some issues that they have raised, that they've noticed, that are going to cause issues for the tribes, and they just want to be have an equal and fair place at the seat and to be held to that same standard.
Any other discussion on the motion to amend? All right, well, we're going to try this by a voice vote. The motion is to amend SJR 504 with 504B. All those in favor of amending, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no.
No.
The noes have it. We are back on 504. Any final discussion or action on SJR 504? Discussion. Representative Schaefbauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I need a clarification because now this amendment, which would provide or let the tribes access this, are we sure that they cannot based on how the non-amended version is written?
That depends on whether you believe the testimony of the tribal attorney that you asked the question of, who said that she didn't think that they could. Any other discussion or action on SJR 504? Representative Reich.
I move to pass.
Motion by Reich, seconded by Baumüller, is due pass. Any discussion on the due pass motion?
Well, I guess I would just say that these gambling, sports gambling is going on now. And the bill, I think, doesn't do anything unless the people support it at the ballot box. And so I think, to me, it's not an area that I had any familiarity with, but we're missing out on a source of revenue, and the people are betting on it now. Let's let the people decide one way or the other. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the due pass motion?
Mr. Chair.
Representative Emery.
So I'm going to support this motion, but I'm only going to support it in the fact that I'm going to take the proponent's word that they're going to include the tribes in this and make sure that the tribes are included and kept whole in this as well. I mean, I think the tribes, can be brought to the table, and it sounds like you guys are willing to make sure that the tribes are brought to the table and included in this discussion if it does pass through the voters in November. So because of that, I will support this, but I hope that will remain the same.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the due pass motion? Okay. Then if there's no other discussion, the motion is due pass on SJR 504. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The secretary will please call the roll.
Representative Baumüller.
Aye.
Emery.
Aye.
Gosh. No. Hanson. No. Healy.
Aye.
Heineman.
No.
Jamison.
Aye.
Lems. No. May.
No.
Reich.
Aye.
Schaefbauer. Overwig.
No.
Odenbach.
No.
6 ayes, 7 nays.
Okay, the due pass motion, having failed to receive a majority of members-elect, fails. Is there any other motions? Representative Gosh.
I'll move 41st day.
Motion by Gosh, second by Overwig to move 41st day. Any discussion on that motion? Well, I've thought long and hard about this one, and I'll explain why I voted the way I did and why I'll vote the way I did on this. I've been very clear to people out in the district I represent that I'm all for destination gambling in beautiful Deadwood, and anything that promotes that I'm for. I think that's good, clean fun. And also the wider net positive effects on South Dakota's tourism economy and the local economy out there. But I think that this measure, every bit of testimony I've heard, runs the risk of putting us further down the path of an addictive form of gambling like video lottery. And when our state was founded, the original Constitution strictly prohibited the legislature from any games of chance whatsoever. And the only exceptions that we've had so far is Deadwood gambling and video lottery. And so I have too much fear that eventually people are going to sit on their couch, on their phone, and say, I don't need to go to Deadwood. And I think long-term, this isn't for the best. So that's why I will be supporting the 41st day motion. With that, the secretary, unless there's anybody else, secretary, please call the roll. The motion is to send this to the 41st day. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no.
Representative Baumüller.
Aye.
Emery.
Aye.
Gosh. Hanson.
Aye.
Healy.
No.
Heineman.
Aye.
Jamison.
No.
Lems.
Aye.
May. Reich.
Aye.
Schaefbauer. Overwig.
Aye.
Odenbach.
Aye.
11 ayes, 2 nays.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. After receiving a majority of members elect, the 41st day motion passes. SJR 504 is sent to the 41st day. With that, we're at the end of today's long day, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move we adjourn.
Motion by Overwig, second by Hanson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you.
SDPB serves South Dakota through an interconnected communication system that is on 24/7, 365. The first place for Amber Alerts, public safety announcements, and EAS messages. SDPB keeps public servants and citizens informed. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB brings you closer to your government. With gavel-to-gavel coverage of the South Dakota legislature and